Hello, welcome to another bonus episode of Cemeteries in Ohio. Today we're at Mater Dolorosa Cemetery. That's a tough one. Located in Boston Heights, Ohio, Summit County. Alternative names of the cemetery, just two I found: Mother of Sorrows and Cassidy Cemetery. So let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. Apologies right off the bat. This is located next to a busy road, and of course there's a delivery truck right over there. I'm sure you can see him in the shot, but we'll try to get through it. Little cemetery history. From what I read, it started off as a private Irish cemetery to the Cassidy family, but was turned over to the Mother of Sorrows Church in 1869, then used as a place of peace for church members. And it's claimed, keyword claimed, a specific group has taken ownership of this cemetery, giving it a bit of attention. We'll discuss it, of course. I think it's more of a legend. We only have 23 memorials listed on Find a Grave, but allegedly there's a few unknowns here. And coincidentally, I couldn't find very many Cassidys here. I see a lot of statements that the cemetery is classified as abandoned, and even in my Ohio guide gives it a low maintenance rating for a score, which means maintenance once every 5 years. So lacking a little bit on that, but I don't know, it's in pretty good shape overall. There is vandalism, however, unfortunately. Today we'll hear the famous story of the worst maritime disaster in U.S. history, hear the story of a Confederate soldier who refused to give in to some of the worst acts of torture during the Civil War, and finally we'll hear the local haunted legends of Mother of Sorrows Cemetery, located near the famous Helltown, Ohio. Didn't know much about that. I won't go into it. I'll let another YouTuber who speaks more elegantly and has better editing skills than I to tell you all about that story. It's pretty interesting. However, does a local church truly have ties to the Satanic church? Upside down crosses can be observed on a local church structure. Or is it simply a case of misinterpretation? Let's dive into that. Our only stop at this cemetery is that of Thomas C. Cody, sadly. But a lot of individuals here were dodgy on history. But Thomas was born in 1844 and met his end in 1865, sadly. Based on that year, you can guess it. Thomas served in the Civil War and was listed in the 115th Ohio Infantry Regiment, Company C to be more specific. This particular regiment was well known for having amazing mechanics and artisans in the crew, apparently. I have to wonder what Thomas's trade was. But we talked about this event at the Knights of Pythias Cemetery in Rainier, Oregon, the famous steamer Sultana incident. Let's take a trip back to April 23rd, 1865. The Civil War just ended April 9th, 1865, so prisoners of war are no longer held captive, therefore got to be transported back home. Along comes the famous Sultana, a 260-foot wooden steamboat capable of transporting 376 people. Keep that number in mind as Union Commander George Williams orders that 2,000 Union prisoners be transported on the Sultana, all in one trip. Math's not adding up, huh? In addition, during a routine stop, April 23rd, 1865, maintenance crews report that the boiler is in need of major repairs that'll be pretty time-consuming, take a while to do. However, the Sultana's captain, who apparently was given a hefty sum to transport the prisoners, saw dollar signs, so he directs the maintenance crews, just patch it, it'll be fine. Therefore, the steamer makes its way up the Mississippi River, chugging along. If I've learned anything throughout my mechanical career, through engines, pumps, motors, etc., they're just dumb animals. They just know, go, I gotta move this item. The steamer is not only handling an overcapacity issue, it's facing a fast current along the river. Hence, the steamer's boilers were facing immense pressure, and keep in mind, mechanics just patched the tanks. The boilers finally let loose and blow up the center of the boat, starting a fire. Men tried jumping ship to swim ashore, but drowned. I guess they were just like climbing all over and top of each other, and others met their end due to the fire, others simply from the initial explosion. I think I read a number, 1,195 out of the 2,000 on board perished, making it the deadliest maritime event in U.S. history. Sadly, our friend here, Thomas, was one of those that died in the event. We're going to talk briefly about Thomas in a bit again towards the end of the video. However, there is another story attached to the 115th Ohio Infantry Regiment. More specifically Company K, and they were accused of war crimes in 1864, more specifically torture. One of the events was insanely gruesome, so prepare yourself. This is of Private Dewitt Smith Joe. Private Job was a soldier in the Confederate Army, 20th Tennessee Infantry Regiment, Company D. In the summer of 1864, Job was a 24-year-old scout. Basically, he joined a team of scouts, and the agreement was if they were in danger, they would often separate to avoid capture. August 29th, 1864, Job had very valuable scouting information on him and was fleeing the Union, who was chasing him. However, the young 24-year-old knew his capture was just going to happen. He's like, I'm made. So he takes his scouting notes and shoves them in his mouth, chewing them and swallowing them. Union soldiers close in on him and try to retrieve what little notes he has, but they just couldn't make it out. They couldn't read it. And they would make him pay dearly for this. At first, the Union soldiers simply tied him up and said, "Tell us what was on the written papers," but Job said, "Nope." It was then that the Union soldiers tied a leather strap around his neck and began to hang him over and over. But Job hung in there, literally. Frustrated, the Union soldiers knocked out his teeth with a pistol, but yet Job refused to give up his intel. They continued beating him, and this whole time the 24-year-old was bound. Yet he told them nothing, putting his life at risk for the allegiance with the Confederate force. It was at this point the Union soldiers put out one of his eyes, clearly extreme force. Again, he doesn't say a word. The Union soldiers give him one last chance at this point, and I'm guessing Job knew the end was coming, so he just accepted his fate. The Union soldiers tied a leather strap to his neck and the other end to a horse, and the horse is set loose. And sadly, 24-year-old DeWitt was strangled to death. He is buried in Brook Hill, Tennessee at a family cemetery from my readings. Union soldiers are quoted as saying he was one of the bravest men I've ever encountered upon returning to town. There is one slight note, perhaps a legend, that Job killed 50 men and held out until his capture. Unsure if it was true, but given his story, I guess you never know. Sounded like a pretty tough dude. Alright, on to the hauntings. A little vague and bold claims here, but this cemetery is known for being haunted. Well known, apparently. This cemetery is called Mater Dolorosa, which apparently translates to Mother of Sorrow, or Sorrowful Mother, a description of the Virgin Mary grieving over her dead son, Jesus. There's actually a famous statue in Spain displaying 7 swords piercing the heart of the sorrowful heart of Virgin Mary. Pretty epic looking. I'll try to put a pic in the video. This appears to be a Catholic Church connection. Rumor goes, though, that the local Mother of Sorrows church is really a satanic church that owns this cemetery, so we'll talk about how that came about. However, they're right down the road, and they appear to devote their faith in the Christ. I checked out their website, didn't get that vibe of the satanic church. Where this whole claim comes from, if you observe the front of the church, you'll see these upside down crosses in the structure of the church. I'll try to put a pic in the video, but look at the top and look at just like right above the entryway. It looks like a cross upside down, so I get that part. However, I did my own little research. To me, I'm observing the 3 typical buds at the end of the cross, hinting the Holy Trinity. And if you look at the crosses, there's a good 60+ versions of them, quite a bit out there. To add, there is one upside down cross associated with the Catholic tradition. That would be the cross of St. Peter, an inverted Latin cross. So before we get carried away with the satanic church, realize maybe it's a misinterpretation. Symbols get kind of tricky. The next legend is white figures can be seen walking about the cemetery, scaring anyone who comes near the cemetery. And I have to feel it. I feel quite comfortable here. I feel pretty welcome. Sorry about the noise from the van over there. He's not welcome. I think I read they were more isolated in the woods, but who knows. Another bold claim was the grave of Michael Rayleigh. Allegedly, if you stare at the headstone for a prolonged amount of time, a face will indeed appear looking right back at you, so that must be a little terrifying. Overall, maybe just another local legend, misinterpretation, I think, of the church. Upside down crosses perhaps blew up this whole legend of it being haunted, but you never know. It's a fun one along the stop to Helltown, Ohio, which I don't know much about, but feel free to read up on that. Before the tour, my parents came along with me. I think I got them hooked on cemeteries now. I just got done with the tour, but I'll splice this before the tour. I guess there's a baby marker way in the back. Has a bunch of money on it or something. That looks like it's it up ahead. As said in the tour, the graves are pretty spread out for some reason. But a neat one. Kind of reminds me of Oregon. Oh wow. 6 years old. A lot of money and little things left over. Cool find. Okay, time for the mini tour. And you know what's ironic? As soon as I started the tour, that truck took off. So you guys get to hear that truck idling the entire video, except this part. Headstones are kind of spread out. We've seen this before. I think a lot of legends arrive that way. Here's Thomas's headstone, Civil War vet. Where people kind of say there must be a ton of graves in there, and then actually we've looked at the cemetery history and it's just some of them are spread out. Really pretty one. I don't know where it is, but you can kind of see the cross on that guy. That's a little nubbin by the walking path. Don't know what that is. Maybe a base to a headstone that's missing. But allegedly, some of the headstones are gone. I don't know if they're stolen, what have you. Let's see who's way over here. The lonesome self. He's 20 years old. I believe that's Irish though, right? I'll let some of you comment on that. The artistry on that. I'd say a pretty loud cemetery, not very peaceful at all, if I'm being honest. A lot of traffic. It's right next to a road, as you can see. This some vandalism here, unfortunately. Dardy. That sounds Irish, doesn't it? And there is the family plot right here of a Cassidy, who the originals. I don't know what that is. But this individual, I guess if you stare at his headstone for a while, you see a face. It's kind of like those books they used to sell. You look at them and then you see something finally. You always see those advertisements. Can you see it? And it's supposed to be like a horse. It's like a tie-dye picture. Wow, this one's so wore down I can't make out anything. But hope you enjoyed the 2 haunted cemeteries in this special in Ohio. Fun little place. A lot of legends in this state I'm finding. Stuff I never knew about because I grew up in Ohio. If you have any other recommendations for cemeteries in Oregon or Washington, welcome to Ohio viewers. If you're watching this, feel free to pipe up below. Have a good one, and thanks for watching.